why aren't artists selling their number one product first, which is their music? You know, he made $27,000 the first 24 hours on the platform. That album went on to make $95,000 before it went to streaming platforms. Right? Why do we remove the value of music? And what happens if we try it again? 86% of artists on streaming platforms that don't earn a single dollar from streaming.
Welcome back to Season 3 of the All About Helping Musicians podcast, where I am on a journey to speak to record label executives, artist managers, music marketers, and CEOs of software companies that can help independent artists to market their music and monetize their fan bases. And along this journey, I'm giving away all the keys to the game that I wish I had when I was a young DJ. And I've packaged it all up, all the lessons I've learned, all the mindset advice, and everything these guests have to give so you can grow in yourself. Today I'm speaking to Mag Rodriguez, who is the CEO of Even, a direct-to-consumer platform and a marketplace that allows musicians to sell their music to their fans before it hits streaming services. You can build a community with email and text messaging. You can sell a pay-what-you-want model so fans can choose what they are willing to donate for their access points and so much more. This is an insightful conversation about monetizing your fan base with Mag Rodriguez. And I know that there's this mindset shift that a lot of artists go through. They think, am I ready to even sell my music? Should I grow my audience first and I'll monetize it later? And they start putting these limiting beliefs and these self-sabotaging steps on themselves, rather than just thinking, what if 100 fans out of my tens of thousands could just spend £10 each? A humble, £1,000 to £10,000 drop from one single, from one EP. Can we start at the very beginning, people? What, in your mind, is direct to fan commerce? What is the origins of the business model behind Even?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, man, thank you for having me. And I think, I have this conversation all the time with artists and managers and teams. And, I always start with sure, let's think about 100, 1,000, right? But let's just think about 10 people, right? 10 people pay £10, just to listen to your album before it's on streaming. You make £100, which is great. And, that could go towards ad spend, on Symphony, or maybe it pays your yearly subscription to DistroKid, or to whatever tool it is that you're using. That's already a plus, right? But more importantly, these are 10 people who will probably pay for merchandise, right? And now you have that relationship with them. You rewarded them with the music. And now it's like, hey, actually, do you know I have this cool hoodie or t-shirt? Those £10 now turn into £50. And then a month later is, hey, I have a show, right? And those 10 people have 2 friends, right? Now you're talking about 30 people, and so on and so forth. You rinse and repeat. I think that's really, going back to your question, the origins of Even really started there. It was, why aren't artists selling their number one product first? Traditionally, artists skip selling their number one product, which is their music, and they go into touring and merchandise and, everything else, which is very important, and it's a core part of the business. But if you can't sell your number one product, how do you even value everything else? How do you put a price to your show? How do you put a price to your merchandise if you've never even sold the thing that is getting you those ticket sales or those merch sales? So that was really the origin. And it really started with this idea that, why did we stop selling music, right? Why do we remove the value of music? And what happens if we try it again? And that was 2.5 years ago when we kind of started with the idea of Even. Exactly 2 years ago from today. So today's October 2nd. On October 1st of 2022, we actually launched our first campaign with La Russell. So that was our first ever campaign 2 years ago. And it's interesting because he just launched the new album yesterday. Granted, this is album number 15 or something on the platform. But, when we launched it, when I first spoke to La Russell, he actually, one of the most curious things that he said was man, I'm already doing this. I'm already selling music, right? But he was doing it a different way. He just had it on a Shopify store where people can pay for digital files. And for him, he's like, this is already working. And I'm like, but now think about it in the lens of a consumer. What would happen if you give them the music in a way that is more enjoyable to them and more seamless than what you're doing now? And he was like, cool, let's try it. And sure enough, he made 27,000 the first 24 hours on the platform. That album went on to make $95,000 before it went to streaming platforms, which, for context, when we started working with LaRussell, he had only made 30,000 in total streaming revenue over the span of 3 years. So for him to 3x his total revenue in just 30 days was a huge testament of like how the model worked.
It's cutting out the middleman to me. Like you said, there's an intermediary, whether it's Shopify, whether it's like a payment processor, whether it's somebody. What I loved about my experience, I bought my first LaRussell project. I think it was Motion. And when I bought Motion, I was like, yo, are we going to get into all of this? Because I have so many questions. But it felt premium. It felt exclusive. I felt like it was an experience that I couldn't get anywhere else but on the Even platform. And then I got to my access points and my utility and the bonuses, which I have so many questions about. But then in your mind, how did you then start onboarding artists by explaining you made this much money from streaming? Like if just 20 sales happen, you're going to make more than your entire streaming payout from an exclusive access to money combo.
I think initially we talked about the money a ton, which I think is really important. It's like, this is how you make money, right? But we've actually switched the narrative and have been working on talking about the other side of this, which I think is the most important, which is really cultivating and serving your audience. I think the music industry has been very transactional with vanity metrics in the past, where like million monthly listeners, right? Everyone wants a million monthly listeners. Everyone wants to be on Fresh Finds or Rap Caviar, right? Like there's these vanity pieces that I think everyone's so interested in, but we've kind of ignored the most important part, where like this is truly about artists and fans. And I think, a big part of what we focus on is talking about access, right? It's not just about putting up an album and telling your fans, hey, buy it from me. It's about, hey, come experience this with me. Join in on this experience of this rollout of this album. And I just spent months or maybe years, pouring my heart into this body of work that I'm about to just release to the world. And I want you guys to feel as excited about it as, I felt making it. And the only way to do that is by getting it directly from me, right? So that kind of emotional component, I think, is really what's gravitating to teams. And of course, the money, comes, the data comes, with it as well. But I do think there is this kind of layer of like, are you ready to really serve your audience? But also, I often talk about the responsibility associated with selling to your fans. Again, this isn't just about making money. You have to serve them as well, right? They are now customers. They're not just fans anymore. They purchased something. They spent, their hard-earned money. I mean, we see if people are like, I gave LaRussell or I gave, X artist my last $100, right? Because I wanted to be a part of this thing. Making sure that you don't take that for granted and you actually give the people what they pay for. So that's a lot of what we focus on, is just like educating artists, creating realistic expectations, not only on like the sales volume that they're hoping to see, but also like what can you actually deliver to your fans where this can be a meaningful experience, not only for your fans, but also for you. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, one of the phrases I use the most, I heard it from Russell Brunson originally, but it's to attract a following, you need to be a leader, right? And to be someone worth following, Russell said you have to serve your community to build your community. And I think a lot of artists maybe struggle with that stigma of, why would I sell the music when I'm just going to put it on streaming in a couple of weeks? And there's a mindset shift to get around there. It's like, it's not for your followers as a broad macro sense. It's not even for your fans. It's for the super fans. They're not going to have to wait. They're not going to have to, like in the iTunes days, you pre-order an album and maybe get 1 track or 2 track. What I love about with Even is you're going to pre-buy it in a way, and you're going to get the music plus some bonuses, plus a group chat, plus some extra content, and to be able to speak with that artist who you want closeness to. What's your philosophy around that? Like, how do you combat the narrative of like selling the music early before streaming?
Well, I mean, to start off, I don't think even is just for super fans. I think in many cases, you leave super fans to meet and greets, right? For touring, for those high ticket pieces, which can be a part of an even campaign. But the beautiful thing about what we've been able to design and also the feedback that we get from fans is even is designed for not only the super fan, but also the passive fans, but also the fans in the middle who are undecided because it's accessible. The pay what you want model truly allows even to be accessible to anyone to help them convert into super fans, right? It's designed to be easy and seamless where it's not a ton of energy. It's you click on a link in bio, Apple Pay, Google Pay, or whatever payment format you want to pay in, and all of a sudden you're a part of this experience. You don't have to download files and upload them to your computer and then upload them to your phone. It's then and there. And then from there, if the experience is enjoyable and you offered truly and you deliver on something that, you're hoping to deliver, those fans can then turn into super fans. So even it's just a starting point. And, granted, we do have releases on the platform where like the minimum is $100 and, that can be strictly for just super fans, but most releases we encourage teams to keep it fairly accessible for fans to actually buy. So everyday people can buy. What's interesting, I talk about this pretty often, but the music industry is getting super fans wrong. We think about super fans as kind of a destination that we want fans to get to, but it's really more of the cliche. It's a journey, right? It's, super fans and just fans in general have so many options in the way that they consume things every day where I might love something today and be extremely passionate about it, but tomorrow I might not be as passionate about it anymore. So how do you continue to develop those experiences, especially at this age of like mass consumption happening all the time? There's albums that I love from 4 years ago, but I don't follow the artists on Instagram. I don't really know what they're up to, but I still listen to that album. I'm not engaging with that content, right? Am I a super fan? Am I not a super fan? Was I once a super fan? Will I be a super fan? I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out instead of focusing on the right now, which is like, how do you create an enjoyable experience for the people that are here today? That's at least the narrative that I focus on when I speak to people around like, super fans are such a buzzword and, I hate it and love it at the exact same time. But I think we need to also switch the narrative to just like consumers, right? How do we build consumer products within the music industry that really incentivize the consumer to spend their hard-earned money on whatever it is that you're offering them?
This podcast would not be possible without the good folks at DistroKid, and they have one amazing tool called Splits that allows you as independent artists to split the bread and all income with all the featuring artists, managers, team members, and collaborators on your project. Within the DistroKid section, as you upload a release, you can set the percentage splits and control what amount of the total royalties get paid automatically into your collaborator's bank account. You can set this up extremely easy once you sign up and join the DistroKid family using my link. And I'll even give you a 7% discount. Just head to distrokid.com/VIP/all-about-helping. Head to the link below to grab my link and sign up after you finish watching the rest of this conversation. I think it's the reframing in the wording. You're right, because if you change the language from super fan to customer, if you change the language to, you're honoring what your customer has paid for, you have to deliver on that promise. Whereas if it's a fan asks for something, you're like, man, I haven't got time or energy or whatever excuse you pull out of the bag to serve that fan. I like the way you say it's the building of that relationship of they're going to spend more money in the future. So how can I live up to my promises, exceed my promises? I want to retain them like a traditional business would for the future. Does that align with your vision for sure?
100%, man. It's that, and you don't need 1 million people to do that. You get 1,000 people to really be, and I even hate using it in ass. Sometimes we're like the true 1,000 fans, right? Because those 1,000 fans will cycle out, right? It's just about retaining 1,000 fans every year. I think will really drive. But that can, of course, develop if your career develops as well as an artist. That's not always the intention, but we also see artists on the platform that are building true sustainable businesses around them, and they started with 20 people, and then it's 100, and now it's 500, and they're happy, right? Through that momentum of like being able to go up, because they're serving that community. They're no longer focused on this idea of volume. They leave the volume game for streaming and social media, but when it comes to their event strategy, they think about it more through the lens of like, most teams are like two people. It's the artist and maybe a manager.
Yep.
And, it's two mouths to feed, really. So I think creating more realistic expectations, that to me is really what I'm passionate about right now. I love working with like the big artists that come to the platform and our label partners, distributors. But, that only makes up less than 1% of the business. I'm really excited and passionate about working with the other 99% of artists, and particularly the 86% of artists on streaming platforms that don't earn a single dollar from streaming. Those are my favorite artists to work with because they come to Even and they make their first $100, their first 500, the first 1,000, and that impact is unmatched. Helping an artist who's never made a dollar before make $1,000 from their career in a matter of days, it changes everything for that. So yeah, hopefully again that makes sense.
I think it's a career-defining moment when you earn your first dollar and then your first 100. And then I'm lucky to be like an ambassador of Even, and I'm so excited to get some of my coaching clients onto the platform. And where I'm personally focusing is heavily around utility. Something that Web3 and NFTs that left on me was, you're not buying the JPEG off the Bored Ape. You're buying the access to the yacht party. You're buying the access to the networking. And what I love about the Even platform is access points. And this is what I wanted to chat to you about. Like, there's intangibles, which is something that costs an artist nothing to put together. A Zoom listening party, a group chat, BTS content you already had sitting on ice, giving it away early. And then there's the tangibles, which is, you're going to give 1 hour a month to do a meet and greet, and fans to get the access to that meet and greet, and you're physically there in person. How did you kind of develop the access points into what they are today with different minimum floor tiers and the pricing? What was that philosophy approach into building that out?
Well, the intention really for context, I was a manager for a long time. I've worked with over 40 artists at every stage that you can think of, from like the emerging early days all the way to like the major deals, touring around the world. And what was always really interesting, especially, and this is all happening during the streaming era / social media, what I always found really interesting is like, if you're an artist and you post a selfie or a picture, engagement is crazy, likes, comments, etc. Then you post a tour flyer, nothing. You post some merch, nothing. You post a new album, tons of engagement, right? But social media isn't linear, right? The algorithm isn't designed to help you reach the millions of people or tens of thousands of people who follow you. It's designed to complement whatever people are looking at today or constantly looking at every single day. So what I thought was like, let's take the moments that really create impact, and let's think about it through the lens of, the end user. So a lot of what you'll notice is a lot of what we encourage artists to do for their announcement videos, like get in front of the camera, get in front of the, what you would do with a selfie or like an announcement of some kind, something that makes people be like, this person that I follow has something to say, and I'm just curious to see what they have to say. So most of our announcement videos start with that, and they end up being some of the most highly engaged posts that our artist partners do. Of course, it has to be authentic, right? You don't really, if you've never done that before, it might not make sense for you. So doing it in your own way is going to be really important. And if you don't really do like a selfie, right, that like always does numbers, maybe you do it in a carousel of selfies where you like announce your album or your new release. So I think that's the initial point. So the idea is like, how do you draw the attention? Then 2 is the call to action. Click the link in my bio. Then they go to their link in the bio and they see the release, where I always make the analogy, or not the analogy, but I talk about how fans come to Even for the music, but they stay for everything else. So you just drew them in for the release, right, for the music, and then all of a sudden they see I get access to music videos. I get access to early access to tickets, or maybe there's a virtual release party. The first thing that we ask teams when we work with them, with artists, or when we onboard them, is like, what were you already planning to do? Most artists have music videos. Most artists have a release party. There's already all these things. Package them into your event campaign. So you're already going to give it away for free. And it gives fans an opportunity to see that more is coming. And just package it into your event campaign. And since they're already paying to listen to the album early, you can give them everything else early as well. So that was really the intention. I used to do this a lot with a lot of the artists that I manage, where we would do it manually through just like collecting emails and phone numbers. I've always been a huge believer of collecting data, down to the point where like some of our early tours that we did, I would negotiate the terms with the promoters where we would take a lower rate just to get access to the fan data. So I would be like, they'll offer us $500 tour support, and we'll be like, we'll do it for $250, but you have to give us all the emails and phone numbers.
Fire.
It's like 2012, 2013. Most promoters were kind of like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, here you go. But I would negotiate that in the building when we went out to like, close out with the promoter of the night. I'd be like, give us the emails, the phone numbers, and you just have to pay us half of the money. And we were able to turn that into the point where we could do our own tours. We could sell our own merchandise. And it was, again, that's where I really saw the value. And I credit a lot of that to like Ryan Leslie, Nipsey Hussle. These were the folks that were talking about the power of data, owning the relationship. And a lot of people thought I was crazy when we were doing these pieces, but, it allowed a lot of the artists that I work with to stay independent for a really long time because they own that relationship. So that's how we started. And then, over time, I was like, all right, it's time to build a product around it now. And that's really what led to.
You know what it is? You've hit the nail on the head, because I remember the Russell and Hit Boy project. They hit me with the access points. I went for the music. I then wanted the visualizers. And then I went for the documentary. I wanted it badly early. And I fully hear you. Like Nipsey Hussle, when he first did the $100 album, the $1,000 album, people thought he was crazy. But actually, he was onto the right lines. The Wu-Tang album for $4 million that Martin Shkreli used to own. And then I really think you've solved a lot of problems. Even I know I heard you speaking on a podcast when you said there's 3 main issues that you've solved: getting artists paid daily, owning their data, and the other one is like really getting ahead of the curve. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit for me? Like, what are the problems you kind of solved with through the lens of being a manager and seeing it from the fan perspective? What were the things you wanted to combat in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think daily payouts is really interesting because I think unless you've ran a business before, you don't really understand the power of cash flow. I always make the argument, if artists got paid daily for daily revenue that they're generating on streaming platforms or whatever it is, they wouldn't need to take advances. But again, that's a completely different subject. The other piece is data. We often forget that, or most people don't even know, some of the biggest artists on the planet don't have access to any of their fan data. And now they're working backwards to figure out how to collect data. You'd be surprised the amount of calls and teams that we work with where their data is kind of all over the place. They might have some pre-save tool that they used a couple of years ago, but they've never activated the data. But I think the power of data is really what's helping some of our artist partners take their business from a couple thousand a year up to millions a year due to the fact that they own their data. And we have a handful of tools on platform that help people manage that. It's under Fan Connect, which now it goes as far as sending SMS and email notifications, but it also helps you manage all of your fan data from city, location. You can import data. And then we're just introducing links as well. You create your own landing pages, essentially, where you can collect data leading up to a release as well. So Even is really becoming more of a creator suite of tools where you can collect your fan data, manage your fan data, but then you can also sell them not only merchandise, but releases, activate them all in one place. But I think that ties into the third big thing that we are really solving, which is artists have never had the opportunity to own their business before. We talk about independence a lot, But the conversation of independence has strictly stayed around distribution, right? Which is like, I distribute my music, I own my masters, I own my publishing. That's cool, right? That's maybe 20% of truly running and owning your business. When we think about everyday businesses, right? Do you own the supply chain of where you get and how you ship your product, right? Like that's only one part of it. The more important side of it is like, do you know who your customer is? Do you have a relationship with your customer, right? If I go to my local coffee shop that I go to every morning, they know me. They know me by name. They know what my order is because I go there every single day. It allows them to essentially know, like, I know Meg is going to come today at 7:30 in the morning and grab, a chocolate croissant and oat milk latte, right? Like that is the type of relationship that people need to have that traditionally the music industry has never had access to. So it doesn't really create a layer of projections of what the third part, which I think is really important, I think now more than ever, but it's a little bit more thinking ahead, is what is your business actually worth? We're seeing catalogs get sold. People are buying catalogs, which I think it's been a big part of the business, especially now more than ever. But how are you actually putting a value on your business? There is really no way to do so up until now, where we have artists on the platform that can now go to a Live Nation and a Ticketmaster and say, we have 180,000 emails that we've collected in the last 12 months from fans from around the world that have bought albums, have bought merchandise. What can you do for me to reach new audiences that I already don't know and negotiate better terms? So I think ultimately that I think is really what the true power of Even is yes, you can be independent, own your business, but truly own it in the sense of knowing who your customers is, but then ultimately also knowing how to put a value on your business, which is really what we're hoping to unlock in the next 24 months as we continue to build more and more case studies where an artist can really get a sense of like, this is how much my business is actually worth right now. And this is outside of publishing, outside of masters, streaming revenue. Like this is like, as a business, what is my business worth? Outside of IP, essentially.
One of the tools I recommend to all my clients is for pre-saves, mailing list capture, and AI-powered Facebook ads. It's called SymphonyOS, and I'm delighted to be a partner and an ambassador for them to tell you about all the amazing features they have dropping every couple of weeks. Recently, they launched the ability to run Facebook ads and Instagram ads to promote your playlist. They've launched a new ads format to promote your tour stops and multiple gig dates. And so many more features are on the roadmap for the rest of the year. If you want to try out SymphonyOS, I'll give you a free 30-day trial of the pro functionality using my link, which is symphonyos.co/allabouthelping. It's one of the most powerful tools that I recommend to my clients. You got my brain just mind blown, honestly, because when I think of like going back to that 1,000 true fans, I bet an artist can't even name their 1,000 true fans. They know a handful of the name, consistently liking their posts, consistently commenting. But at true scale, when you magnify this to its biggest possible point, can you name the people spending money with you? Can you name the people who are most likely to buy tickets to the headline show? And what I'm blown away by is within Fan Connect, you can have a lot of that info of who are the fans in what city. How can I mail them out about shows in New York? How can I mail them out about t-shirt drops and segmentation? I know it's the boring and not so sexy part of email marketing, but isn't that crazy how you can really strategize, is the proper word for it, and then maximize your earnings based on fulfilling what fans truly want? There's a science and an art to it. I think it's like, how can you tap into the emotional side, the heart set, but also like really maximize revenue at the same time? Everyone wins. Artist is happy, fan is happy. Like, you can live in your power and work on that business full time. It's crazy.
Yep. No, I mean, I think that's exactly it. And again, it's about being realistic. I always try to like scale things down and really focus on, what's actually possible today, right? I think, getting to a big crit level or a Coast Contra or a Jadena or Lauren Jareggi, these are all incredible artists that have these like massive audiences and have done a lot of the groundwork in the past. But I also think it's important to just think about the everyday artists that, might be just starting out, and how they can really take advantage of even to just really begin. Show you an example. Again, we'll blur all this out. But let me share. This is an example of an artist on the platform, DIY artist. They've done 2 releases on the platform. They have about like 5,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Okay.
They've done $3,200 on Even with 277 fans, paying an average of $21. Now, when we go to their analytics, they released their first project April of this year, and 21 people paid an average of $32, and they made $680, right? Which is amazing. This is the equivalent to about 200,000 streams, which up until this point, they had never really generated. And again, some fans paying upwards of $100. 4 months later, they dropped another EP, part of this series. They used their $700 to run ads to build the presence around this next campaign. They made $2,500 4 months after with 250 fans, essentially 10xing the amount of people who bought the album. Granted, his average sale price decreased, but there's a higher volume of people. Now, he's about to drop a new project in December, part of this series. They can now go to Fan Connect and say, I want to send a message to all of these fans. I want to send them an email that says, hey, I have a new release. And they can enter all the information here and send a message to those fans to now buy this release. And then continue to do that. Right now, they can send a message and say, hey, I have new merch. Or maybe I don't want to do an email. I want to do an SMS. Hey, I have a new merch, item. Buy this directly from me. And they can continue to do that over and over again. And then, they can even import data if they collected data in the past. So, again, hopefully this makes sense around like...
Completely. It's my jaw is hitting the floor. Because Van, the way that you've built those pre-made templates, the way you've done all the prompting and it's spelled out, you can connect with your fans. Just what message do you want to give to them? Exactly. That's the thing that's opening my eyes. Honestly, I am gassed, bro. You're, to me, one of the biggest disruptors in music right now. I'm grateful you're here. I wanted to share some big news from my side, man. I am so gassed to put out my own Even drop soon. I've been anti-course, never wanted to do a course in my life before. My whole philosophy was about working with the artist and coaching them up. And as I was repeating myself over and over again, I started saying, let me write the script. Let me write the instruction set out into a playbook. And it's a big old Notion pack with hundreds of little links for how to do an Instagram live, how to do an EP announcement, how to do this, how to do that, how to edit in CapCut, how to design a flyer in Canva. And at one point I was like, I could serve thousands of people around the world, especially in less affordable markets like in Western Africa, Northern Africa, where the affordability is not quite there. And you have a tool for that as well. And I was like, I want to build my own course. And I'm excited to put it out in Q4, man. It's going to be crazy when we make this happen.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited for you. I've been seeing the messages behind the scenes, and I think it's going to be really, really impactful. I think especially for, your audience, right? As an educator in the space, I think it'll be really helpful. But I think also being able to give them access to the tools that, give them, the power to really do it, which I think is important.
I'm super gassed to share this huge news that I am launching a course exclusively on Even. It's going to be called the 100K Hitmaker System, which is designed to scale any artist, no matter how small their audience, to build their fan base and monetize their brand by scaling up their songs from 10K to 30K per release, dropping a song every 6 weeks, and scaling their Spotify catalog towards 100,000 streams. Like, I never ever wanted to create a course. My vision was to work with artists, but I kept repeating the same old instructions: how to do pre-save campaigns, how to do an Instagram live listening party, how to post-market the record and drive traffic, how to cultivate a community, and as well as how to do a fan drop on Even. So I started writing out all these instructions into a playbook in Notion. And then one of my clients said to me, I have a friend who'd like to buy this. And that opened up my eyes that I could give this all advice away to the world. And so I'm working with Even. It's going to be exclusive to their platform. I'll be telling you more about it in the weeks to come, opening up a wait list so you can be one of the first to get it, and you'll be able to pay what you want. It's one of the first of its kind for a course like this. There's going to be different tiers. On the beginner level, you can get access to the intro modules, and then certain tiers you unlock other modules inside the course. I'll tell you more soon, but I'm gassed just to share this news publicly for the very first time with Mag, the CEO of Even. Hey man, I think no one teaches social media. They assume an artist just picks it up along the way. And, you can learn how to produce a song, you can learn how to coach your voice, you can learn a lot of different skills. But actually, the marketing is left to the smart artists to work it out. And I'm quite good at reverse engineering, so I'll download Ella Russell project or any other, like a theater drop. I'll reverse engineer the steps they did to market it and say, what are the commonalities and the red thread that unify them all? And then I build that into my own sort of playbook. But can you talk to me a little about the regional pricing tool? I think this is wonderful just to support the community. Like, how are you helping be affordable at other markets?
Yeah, so regional pricing is really interesting because it's something that some of the biggest organizations on the planet haven't even figured out. So to give you an example, there's only one Apple store in Latin America. There is 0 Apple stores in Africa, right? They have authorized dealers where you can go and buy like Apple products, but as far as like an Apple store, and a lot of it has to do with regional pricing being something, or geographic pricing, or country specific pricing, whatever you want to call it. So we know the importance of global audiences, and it's really started within the team. We have folks in 14 different countries at the moment across North America, Central, South America, and now Africa, in Europe. And a big part of this is really understanding that the buying power is going to be different with consumers, but there's a volume impact that's also in play here. To give you an example, we just announced our partnership with Nigeria, where we're working directly with the National Council of Arts and Culture to really educate the community around monetizing Nigeria's #1 cultural export, which is Afrobeats. And this is a similar conversation that we're having in the Dominican Republic, in Mexico, Brazil, and different regions around the world, where there is creators that are in these countries that can't tour globally yet, but they have a product that's blowing up on social media, which is music, and they can now monetize and engage with these global audiences. Now, what a fan can pay in Nigeria is different than what a fan can pay in the US, and a fan can pay in Mexico, and a fan can pay in Poland. So artists on the platform can now, and this will be fully live to all artists, fingers crossed before the end of the month, where you can essentially say, my biggest markets are these top 5 markets, and I want them to be in this price. You can set your global price. This will be for every other country in the world. Traditionally, this has to either be done in USD, the Euro, or the British pound to create essentially the global pricing. And then you can create regional pricing where if I'm an artist in Mexico, I want my Mexico price to be this many pesos. If I want my second biggest market is Nigeria, I want it to be in this much Naira. And what this does, it unlocks not only pricing that's fair to the market, but it also unlocks payment methods that are going to be familiar to the consumers in those regions. So in Nigeria, for example, the Naira, it only really operates within a company called Paystack, which is their main payment processor. Kenya, their currency primarily operates through a platform called M-Pesa, which is a completely different payment method. So being able to unlock those pieces, Nigeria, there's 220 million people on Nigeria, which is more than 2/3 the size of the United States. No one's talking about that. Kenya, 120 million people, a third of the United States, right? Massive markets that are embracing digital commerce, but no one's making it accessible for them to be able to actually buy these things. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But
it does.
Regional pricing, hopefully I didn't overcomplicate it.
No,
it's really rooted in accessibility.
It's sheer genius. I think like your saying there's a market, there's an appetite for it. But unfortunately, by the way of like affordability, taking a US produced t-shirt or a vinyl and then manufacturing it, shipping it over to those markets, and then selling it, it's just not at a price that can be affordable. And so I like this idea of the intangibles can be placed at a price that is affordable, and there's a product for the consumer base that's out there at the price they can afford and at scale, because they've got their first artist that they love locally in the hood or locally in the area is on the platform. Like, they're going to champion them even more. I think this is genius by yourself and the team just to build this out.
No, I mean, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I wish I would tell you that this is all ready to go all the time. It's always I think what's really interesting is like what everyone is seeing today is stuff from 6 months ago for us. So I'm always excited about like coming, mostly because the product continues to evolve based on the needs of our clients, which are our artist partners. And you'll continue to see even become more and more of again a creator suite, where it's not just musicians, right? We have folks like yourself that are doing like this formal course. We have podcasters joining the platform, content creators, even is really evolving from just like musicians on the platform. So yeah, again, hopefully that all makes sense.
So it does, for sure, bro. I'm deeply honored that you took the time. I know you've got a flight to catch. I'm not going to hold you any longer. Where can people connect with you personally, and where people can find out more about Even and apply to be an artist who launches on the platform? Give us the plug, please.
Yeah, well, I think to start, if you're an artist that wants to join Even, there should be a link here that's going to be a direct referral link that we'll give you for you to share. But this will actually allow artists to bypass the waitlist and get immediate access to the platform. So I don't even know if I mentioned that to you before. But
Yeah. Melded. Thank you.
Amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
So we'll be giving that over to you. And then as far as me, you can find me on all social media platforms. Just Mag is for Magic. So at Mag is for Magic. And then all things Even, it's even.biz. You can go to our website, even.biz. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We probably have more platforms, Facebook, but even.biz. You can find us everywhere.
Huge love, my bro. Again, you're blowing my mind with the stuff that you're working on, the stuff that you've manifested for the last several years, and just channeling everything into just serving the artist community and economy. And man, you're a trailblazer, bro.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, man. And thank you for having me too, man. I really appreciate it.
If you've loved this interview, head to this playlist over here for all the other All About Helping Musicians episode from season 1 and season 2. We'll be back again next week with the very next interview.